All right, everybody, welcome back to coverage here of the U.S. Regional Championship. My name is Corey Ballmeister, and I am joined by our 2016 World Champion. That's Brian Braun doing. BBD, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. I'm doing better after 2 rounds of Magic. I'll be doing even better after a third round, or for these players, a sixth round of Magic.
Yeah, it's a lot easier when we've only done 3 rounds here. These players have already put in 6 rounds, or this is their sixth, and they still have a ton of tournament left to go. So we're jumping into round number 6 here out of 9. These players still have a ton of Magic to play, but our players are 5-0. So let's take a look at our first deck list. We have a doozy here for you. We got Jody Keith playing Mono White Martyr. Now, BBD, you've been playing Magic a long time. Were you playing Magic when Mono White Martyr with Reclamation, all that kind of stuff, when that was a thing?
I was playing Magic back then. Yeah, this is definitely. I mean, it's a way different looking deck these days, but Martyr has just been this staple for so long, as a fringe staple, I should say. Like Martyr's always kind of, except for some eras, always been this kind of fringe deck, but it just does something cool and unique, and it's always fun to see it. It's just a rare, like, grind you out completely type control deck in a format like Modern.
Yeah, I remember seeing a Mono White Martyr, this is no joke, on dial-up internet playing against Dragonstorm back in the day. So that's going to really age me on, how old this deck is the first time I saw it come to be.
Yeah, you were like, by the time this Martyr finishes resolving, I'll have 56K instead of 28K.
Yeah, I can hope. I can hope. Yeah. So Jody, we saw on camera a little bit earlier, and we also saw this other up and comer Magic player that we're going to see. It's Luis Scott Vargas playing what I think, BBD, we've been talking a lot behind the scenes. What kind of we both think is maybe the deck of the tournament. This was held very close to the players, sleeves that had this kind of hot tech for this 4-color Rhinos deck. And yeah, I would say the deck of the tournament so far. Tell us a little bit about this one.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see this deck in action because I already loved Rhinos, and to me, this looks like an actual upgrade on the Rhinos strategy. So it's still got the Shardless Agent, Violent Outburst into Crashing Footfalls, like Power Spike on turn 3.
Yeah.
But instead of having some of these interactive control elements that the normal Rhinos deck would play, it's replaced it with a little bit more of a proactive, powerful strategy using Leyline of the Guild Pact, which turns all of your lands into 5-color duals, which means Scion of Draco now is going to always cost 2 mana. And that Scion of Draco, because of Leyline of the Guild Pact's other ability, is going to be all 5 colors, as are all your creatures, which means they get 5 full keywords as well.
Yeah, and that being said, all the cool stuff that Leyline of the Guild Pack does, I think Jody is going to be pretty happy about it. Is to be like, okay, your cards have a lot more words on them. Wrath of God. Okay, your turn. So I would think maybe, just maybe, this matchup is still not great for Luis, but only one way to find out. The match is ready. Let's head down to round number 6 here in our feature match of Dreamhack Denver for our regional championship. Would you agree, though? Do you think this does seem like what Jody wants to play against, or is this maybe not so much the matchup? I know these Mono White Martyr decks had a really good Rakdos Evoke deck, Evoke matchup, but I'm not sure about Rhinos.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. I mean, I would tend to agree with you that I feel like at the end of the day, Rhinos is still a creature deck. It's still vulnerable to all the kind of grindy anti-creature elements of Jody's deck. But
Yeah.
the difference is how little investment some of these cards require. Like,
Yeah.
you're putting in, Jody is forced to wrath away a single Shardless Agent worth of investment.
Totally agree. And Jody Keith been around the block quite a bit. A very strong Magic player, has a lot of good finishes. But Luis Scott Vargas, one of the best Magic players of all time. Full stop. End it right there. Got to be the favorite in the room as far as best players playing. Is also from Denver, so another player that gets to wake up and go sleep in his own bed after this. Hall of Famer. I could go on and on about Luis Scott Vargas's resume.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, not only is this a really interesting and great matchup from the context of these two decks, which are one that we don't see very often in Martyr and a new take on a popular deck. It's also two great players.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to like some awesome Magic. And I think we're about to see 10 power worth of awesomeness.
Yeah, I think you might be right. And I was going to say, we don't have that much time to just banter about how great of a human and a Magic player Luis Scott Vargas is because, well, you can see it on your screen. Luis plays so very fast. I remember there was a pro tour where he was playing a feature match and was told to slow down. You know, was playing another extremely fast Magic player and was just told to please slow down for coverage so that they could keep up as he plays so quickly.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that's one of the most impressive elements of him is how well he plays and how fast he plays.
Yeah.
Because it's not easy to play that fast. I can tell you that much. I didn't always have a reputation for being the fastest player, so
Yeah,
it's
quite the
it's
opposite, really, right?
yes, yeah. So yeah, to me that's a really impressive thing is how accurately he plays with the speed that he plays. Just sees the game on a different level.
100%. Yep. All right, so here we go. We got Shardless Agent. We got 8 power. The go-to best play in Modern. I think it's pretty clear. Of course, you know, Amulet draws and stuff like that can compete with it as well. But turn 3, putting 10 power into play is just so extremely powerful. And most of the time that means like, yeah, there's no more interaction. You're tapped out. Not with this Rhinos deck. You're always able to you know, just keep interacting with subtlety, force and negation, all these kind of things.
Yeah. And yeah, that's really, I mean, to me that was a selling element of why I love the deck so much is the opportunity cost is so low on
Yeah.
and you get so much power out of it too.
And I mean, you know, basically the same, that's an enchantment, Shardless Agent. Basically the same power level of a 3-mana enchantment there that's revealed from Jody's, right? Abiding Grace, Shardless Agent, pretty close to power level, right?
You know, I'm gonna actually say yes. I'm gonna zig when you want me to zag. I actually really love the card Abiding Grace, so you're not gonna get me to demean it.
Dang, my joke really backfired, huh? You would
Yeah.
be an abiding grace enjoyer here. So, all right,
Yeah.
here you foiled me again. But I mean, it does, you know, turn it into a lot of life gain, right? If you're able to play abiding grace, get back martyr, and just sacrifice it every turn, that's tough to keep up with. But as it stands, here's the One Ring to give that protection. There's going to be no damage that can be dealt here. And now this gives Jody quite a lot of draws at, you know, a Wrath effect. There's Wings of Abandon that you can overload as well as Wrath of God. And even temporary lockdown for these Rhinos is pretty gross.
Yeah, it's more like a permanent lockdown.
Yeah, touche. Touche. Thank you, BBD.
I think like this Abiding Grace it's not gonna be enough. Like Jody will need some sort of wrath effects, but does have at least some time, actually quite a bit of time with the One Ring, and a second One Ring to get there. So
Yeah, that was the first force of negation check from Luis Scott Vargas. You know he would have slammed it if it was there, as it would have just been what 8, 16, just 20 damage coming back. So definitely not there. And as it stands, that's gonna draw Jody another card here, another card for draw step next turn, and then 2 more from the ring. And ooh, what's better than 2 rings, BBD?
out of a 3 rings, 4 rings.
3 rings,
Yeah,
correct. Yeah, I spot another ring in hand there from Jody. So if the force of negation wasn't there, unless Louise just picked it up, there's even more time to be bought and another 3 cards from the next ring. So yeah, every time we've seen Jody Keith's mono white martyr deck on camera, it's looked pretty awesome.
yeah, it has looked great. I gotta say though, I'm a little disappointed. The One Ring. Why are we saying? I mean,
Yeah,
this flavor fail.
I was really hoping that card would be restricted just for the flavor alone. You know, honestly, it probably would have been correct by just how powerful the card is as well, but the flavor was just there.
Oh, oh, you know it.
All right, so draws a bunch of cards here. And now is it time to maybe start casting some of your other stuff? Or do you just cast another One Ring here?
I mean, it depends on how safe you feel because I wouldn't feel that safe as Jody. Like there's a lot of ways that things can go wrong if you just kind of throw some stuff onto the table when you're at 17 life, facing this board, facing the damage from the One Ring as well.
Looks like maybe players are talking about just making sure the right amount of lands were played. I think this is correct. It should be 6 lands.
I believe so.
Yep. As long as we're counting the land that Jody played this turn, but always good to make sure. Judges are your friend. Remember that. Just call a judge whenever you have a question. Always better than the alternative.
So it looks like this is going to be play to the board. I mean, this might be a lockdown.
Okay, here is a really spicy card here as we got Ranger Captain of Eos. Another trick I love with this card in this Rhinos matchup is just responding to the Cascade trigger by sacrificing it. It probably doesn't come up a ton, but I mean, that's one way to stop Rhinos.
Yeah, I mean that's a really powerful interaction. It's stop 8 power with your creature that already provided you value anyway.
Yeah, no kidding. Okay, so got a creature picked up there. The Kami of the False Hope. That's quite the combination with Abiding Grace.
Yeah, that is quite the combo. I
How does
think
Luis get out of that?
I think it's going to take just a piece of interaction at the right time.
Yeah, I'm thinking like, what if the combo is on the battlefield, right? There's one Abiding Grace, there's one Kami of False Hope. Does Luis have a way out, or is that just, a trap for him?
Well, I mean there's going to be like leyline binding that could take away the
Okay.
abiding grace, but also Kami comes back during Jody's end step.
Yeah.
So a piece of removal then is also a viable way to prevent it from stopping the combat damage on your turn.
Oh, sure. Just fire it at end step. Ends up being good enough. Okay, so that's not going to be enough. Jody will need, some other pieces of insurance for sure. But as far as the last time we looked at the hand, it's there.
And 3 more cards are coming too. So.
All right. Solitude, a couple of lands picked up, has about 150 other cards here. So Thraven Inspector, there's the temporary lockdown, a One Ring at the back, 2 Abiding Grace, a Skyclave Apparition. Wow.
Yeah, there's just a plethora of riches here. I mean, I feel in some regards, you still want to sequence properly, but I think there's a lot of different ways to come out ahead here.
Yeah. So here it looks like maybe Abiding Grace. If we haven't played a Landlet, another option is just temporary lockdown to kind of test to see if there's a counter spell, and then just the One Ring again, reset that. But there is the Force of Negation. Now, is there another force? Doesn't look like it from Luis. I see Shardless Agent, Violent Outburst, and a Leyline. So smart call from Jody there, not going for any other, less than the One Ring protection, as Luis might have been able to sneak by.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Like you're in a commanding spot in this game. Don't put yourself at unnecessary risk by saying, "Oh, there wasn't a force of negation before. Maybe there won't be one now."
Exactly. But as it stands, we're kind of at this part of the game where things are looking very good for Jody Keith. So I want to kind of look forward to the next game from Luis and this, sweet take on Rhinos. All the sweetness from this list. Are you like taking them out? Are you taking Leyline of the Guild Pack out?
I'm not sure. I could honestly see it because it's not that these creatures and the like combat stats that they're providing, like from Scion of Draco, that's not what's relevant in this matchup. So I do think there is a world where you want to cut some of that kind of stuff so you're not overplaying into wrath effects
Yeah.
and build up more interaction instead. Because a shardless agent into Rhinos, that's enough pressure by itself. But you need to be able to make sure you're not getting run over like this.
Yeah, I mean, the targeting your creatures. I think the best part of the Leyline Sign of Draco thing is just removal is dead.
Yeah.
And when Jody's playing removal, like Winds of Abandon, Wrath of God, like this just literally does nothing. It negates Solitude, but we might even see Jody take that card out as well, in response to that. But That
Yeah,
is
I
the
could.
one thing that is the cost with this domain Rhinos instead of teamer Rhinos is we heard LSV talk about what cards that he cut to play, these new ley lines, these Sign of Dracos. And it was the Tishana's Tidebinders, a card that is just excellent against like the One Ring and really just Jody's deck in general. So while I think this version is really cool, this is maybe not the matchup where we should be like hyping up Luis's, super cool tech dot list of Rhinos, wouldn't you think?
Oh, I completely agree with you. Like there is trade-offs for, what decisions he's made with his deck list, and losing some of those elements to give your creatures these like dominating combat stats. This is probably the nightmare trade-off, right?
Yeah, I mean, man, Luis just really should have been prepared for the mono white Martyr matchup. It's probably on him for this choice, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, I mean that's his fault. If you don't come prepared for Abiding Grace, then what are you doing with your life?
You're messing up. That's what you're doing. So, all right, let's get into game number 2 here with Luis Scott Vargas down a game to Jody Keith, and we'll see if Luis on the play can be a little bit different here. Kind of looking at that hand, see a couple lands, leyline binding, some force negations. There's a couple cards face down. I see a dice on 5. That's not good for Luis Scott Vargas.
Nope, that's not what you want to see.
All right, but here we are, Flooded Strand to kick this off. And a land from Jody.
And a lot of times I would say being down resources with a deck that has such a high power level as Rhinos, like maybe isn't that big of a deal. However, this is a matchup where I think it is a big deal.
Yeah, I do as well, because one Wrath of God, when you have 2 violent outbursts or whatever, it's not that big of a deal. But when you're low on resources, the thing that I would want to keep if I'm Luis is like, yeah, a 2-drop here, 1 Rhinos and 1 piece of interaction, like a force negation or something. You don't have the ability to be like, all right, I'm going to keep 3 Rhinos, 3 lands, and a Scion or something.
Absolutely, and it looked like LSV even like bottom to Force of Negation off of the 5 cards. So definitely going to be missing some key powerful cards.
Yep, absolutely. But we know Luis and how well he plays the game of Magic. I'm sure we are down to 5 cards for a reason, as the rest of those hands, we're not going to get it done. So here we go. We see the Surveil land from Jody into a Plains, and just a lot of cards. Can't really make out all of them. I saw Eagle of the North as well as a play. Plus Abiding Grace, I think, in the back.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I do think is really nice here is that, especially if it's like a violent outburst that can dodge a piece of sorcery speed removal,
Yeah.
is LSV doesn't need much more to put Jody on like a 2-turn clock, or even possibly a 1-turn clock. And so even though LSV is down all these cards, he might only need just 1 piece of interaction to lock it up with this pressure.
We'll see if Jody has one of the 3 Hollowed Moonlights in the board. This would be devastating. Oh, it's not there, but the Reprieve is there. Okay, yep, 2 of those in the main as well. Wow, Reprieve and Hollowed Haunting to be able to deal with these Rhinos. The more and more I look at Jody's deck, the more I think this matchup, I don't want to say a buy by any means, but this matchup looks good for Jody, I must say.
Yeah, and it definitely looks prepared at the very least.
Yeah. I mean, just if you have, reprieving the crashing footfalls or hollowed haunting the crashing footfalls, it's pretty much the same. It's, counter target spell, draw a card, and that is just extremely powerful.
Yeah, I mean, you can resuspend, but by the time that's happening, I think the game is generally going to be pretty decided one way or another.
And of course, hollowed moonlight is what I meant. Misspoke there. Sorry about that, chat. First mistake I've ever made, BBD.
It's the first I've ever seen, and I'm disappointed.
Yeah, hey, I had a good run.
You had a great run.
All right, there we go. We see the Rhinos coming into play. Let's see if there is an answer to deal with all these powers, or if Luis can maybe sneak it. There is the temporary lockdown, but the last two cards was a force and blue card. That's 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 damage. 12 is not 13. So we'll see if there's a way to get the last couple points.
Yeah, I mean, 12 is not 13. That could be famous last words against a deck like Martyr.
Yeah, no kidding. Violent Outburst, anyone?
All right, and there was also Solitude, so Jody buffered himself a little bit as well.
Yep, there we go. Goes to Jody's turn. Let's see if there's another answer to this stuff. Land 4 plus ring. See another temporary lockdown. Skyclave apparition. Skyclave's an interesting one. That doesn't seem amazing in this matchup post board, does it?
No, yeah, I don't love it.
Yeah.
I think as far as I can tell, it looks like Jody might be kind of in a spot where he's got to just kind of play some creatures out and
Yeah.
okay. Oh,
Ooh,
and
and there it goes. Subtlety in response there, or at the end step to just make sure you got 7 power to attack to even this up here. Okay, I guess that's how you win it on a multi 5 there. That was really impressive.
yeah, that was really impressive. And I want to credit one thing about that.
Mhm.
Actually, the whole match from LSV's perspective is how aggressively he's playing.
Yeah.
In terms of he's not trying to generate card advantage everywhere he can. He understands that he's never going to win that game against Jody. He's got to play this aggressive game.
Yeah, I would 100% agree. If it's turn 8, Jody's winning almost 100% of the time. So Luis is definitely going to be pedal to the metal, trying to get it done. Going to be a little bit tougher for Luis here. Game number 3 being on the draw, but let's see what happens here in our final game. I'm excited. This has been a great match. Let's dive on in.
I'm always
Oh,
excited to see decks like Mono White Martyr. It's just it's in some ways people say Burn is the fun police. I think this is the fun police. And sometimes it's
BBD.
fun to see the fun
Is
police.
that a mulligan to 4 this time from Luis? Oh,
Oh, is that it?
no.
Yeah, that's not good.
Yikes. Yeah, that is not good at all. Mulligan to 4 in the deciding game. Kind of giving me flashbacks to the Pro Tour against Andrew Ellenbogen. Hi, I believe that was exactly a mull to 4 in that final game as well. And you just hate to see that, you know?
Yeah, I mean it's a little bit worse here at round 6 of RC Denver, but you hate to see it at any point in time.
Yeah, there you go. 100% worse, that's for sure. But that being said, if any deck is going to still be okay on a mulligan to 4, it's going to be Rhinos. I would if both players mulled to 4, I would put a huge advantage to Luis Scott Vargas. So, definitely still in this one.
Definitely still in it for sure. I think Luis said, "Okay, I won on a mull to 5 last game while I was on the play. Let's
Yeah.
ratchet it up. So can I win on a mull to 4 on the draw?"
Yeah, Luis is such a skilled Magic player that sometimes, he just gets bored while he's playing. So he likes to challenge himself, Probably had a 7-card hand that was just perfect, but was like, you know what? Let me give this a shot here and mold down to 4.
So Jody hasn't played any cards yet, so I'm interested what he has in his hand. I mean, certainly a lot of reactive elements, but I'm curious, what level there is.
Yeah. Okay. So here is a field in response to this. So that's gotta lead me to believe it is a field plus one of those 2 mana powerful instants, either reprieve or hollowed moonlight, would
Yeah,
be my guess. But that being said, there's quite a few basics. Oh wow. There is only one basic in Luis' list. So that other field is gonna actually do some damage.
yeah, and I think that's very relevant, especially if Jody does have the answer here.
Yeah, and there is that absolutely phenomenal answer. Hollowed Moonlight. Let's see if Luis has a follow-up Shardless Agent. It is there. Pressure back on Jody.
Yeah, and that was good sequencing to go outburst into Shardless Agent in that order.
Yeah.
That way you force out the interaction on Jody's turn, and now on LSV's turn, Jody was tapped out and couldn't have the interaction.
Yep. And here is the one ring that's able to be resolved. And you got to think, if Luis had a 7-card hand, the chances of him having a force plus blue card to pitch here would have been a lot higher. And then this match could just be straight over. As that's not the case, Jody Keith untapping with the extremely powerful artifact.
Yeah, I think based on the way that these decks operate and look like, this is starting to look a little bit more like we saw from that first game, where things might be starting to slip a bit out of LSV's grasp.
Yeah, 100%. So now we're going to search for a one drop. What is it, BBD, and why is it Thraben Inspector?
Looks like it's Martyr of Sands. I don't know. You don't get a clue off of Martyr of Sands.
God, an in real life misclick. Interesting. Okay, so it
Yeah.
gets Martyr of Sands. All right, obviously that's the better pick here. As even if Jody has like 3 white cards, gaining 9 life here is basically the one ring protection from 1 extra attack. And what a combination! The one ring and Martyr of Sand. The kind of absurd combination is really the one ring and Shieldred, right? Like you lose some life, but you're gaining so much when you're drawing. Martyr of Sands and the one ring might just be better.
Yeah, and I think that is really like what makes this deck great is specifically the One Ring. I think without a card like that, you're going to run out of gas way too often.
Yeah,
You're going to have these grindy elements, but you can easily just kind of falter. But being able to draw so many cards with the One Ring and the life loss not really being a drawback,
yeah,
I think that is kind of the core reason why like Jody would want to play a deck like this. And
totally
it seems
agree.
it
And
seems to be good.
I mean, it seems pretty awesome. You got to think that this is a matchup that is extremely matchup polarizing, right? Like, I want to just see what this mono white deck does against an amulet deck, against Tron. Like I would think that those are just extremely terrible matchups. But any deck that's trying to attack you, and I think Yawgmoth would be the big test. Like if Yawgmoth is also a good matchup, then wow, you have a good matchup against 3 out of the top 4 decks, but I would assume Amulet and Yogg would both be kind of rough, wouldn't you think, Baby Deer?
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure, honestly. I mean, there are so many Field of Ruin type effects in this deck that
Yeah.
it's hard to say that that's a guarantee,
Yeah. Just double checking if you have to shuffle. You do. So we'll see LSV pick up. Oh, maybe you don't. Okay. All right. I was like, dang, I got immediately proved wrong. That's too bad. But yeah, even if you don't have another basic, you still just got to shuffle your deck.
That's the ultimate right there. That's the you got lethal on the board. I'm gonna make my opponent shuffle their deck one more time.
Yeah. Yeah. That's how you really get them. The extra still had all these shuffles. So back in the day, before you had the one ring to get a huge card advantage, what was the card that you always had to bring back Martyr? It was like Proclamation of Sands or something, right?
There's Proclamation of Rebirth, and I think
Okay,
that was kind of the core engine.
gotcha. But as it stands, that is Jody Keith taking this match down in 3 games here. And wow, Mono White, Martyr of Sands, BBD. I am impressed.
Yeah, that's the second time we've seen this deck, and
Yeah.
it's looked really good in both matchups.
Hmm.
I'm inclined like to just say it's a good deck. It looks
Yeah.
like it has the tools and elements it needs to beat a lot of the top metagame decks. It's
Hmm.
definitely a polarizing deck. I'm sure it's going to have some matchups that are like horrendously bad, but in general, yeah, I think this just looks like a great deck. Great
Yeah.
choice.
And I mean, both of the decks that we saw on camera, a Wild Nakatl deck, a Rhino deck, attacking the mono white Martyr deck. Do you think like it is just like as good of a matchup against creatures as it is a bad matchup against decks that are trying to combo you? Living End, Tron, these kind of decks, or do you think those are still pretty close?
I think those are going to be a problem for sure, especially if they have the interaction. Like, I think these kinds of like interesting control decks like mono white actually generally do have tools against these kinds of decks. The
Yeah.
problem is finding those tools, and then secondly, they don't really have a way to protect those tools once they've found them. So that's kind of where the problem arises.
Makes a lot of sense to me. All right, everyone, we are going to take a short break and we'll be right back with some backup feature magic here at the regional championship here in Denver, Colorado. Don't go anywhere.
This is the Heavy Play Equip Mag.
All right, everybody, welcome back here of coverage of the U.S. Regional Championship here in Denver. My name is Corey Baumeister. That's Brian Braun doing, and we're going to be bringing you coverage of just one more match. BBD, not cool. I wouldn't it? Don't you just want to stay and just cast it all?
Yeah, I mean, you can't get it all though, Corey. Everything in moderation.
All right, I guess. We're going to be forced to this one last extremely sweet match here. But we got these players on 4-1 record here. So still doing great. Not necessarily 5-0 going into this, but still really strong record. So let's take a look at the deck lists and see what we got here for our backup feature match. Starting with Jackie Wang. Jackie is playing creativity here, but we got some spice here, BBD. Even a new card here from Murders at Markov Manor.
Yeah, we got Deduce in the deck, which looks pretty good. I mean, it's kind of a bridge card in that it's going to replace itself while also providing you a token that you need to execute your combo with Indomitable Creativity. So it's kind of, I don't know, like a lot of times these decks want a card that goes between some of their early stuff and late stuff that just helps smooth draws and bridge gaps.
I mean, 2 mana to draw 2 cards. I mean, what is this? Just upgraded Think Twice here? I mean, Power Creeps really got us on this one, huh?
Yeah, you only have to think one time these days.
Oh, thank God. Thinking twice gets exhausting. So let's take a look at Jackie's opponent here. And we got Michael here playing Rakdos Evoke here. Tell us a little bit about this list, and is it just pretty stock here?
It looks a little bit different. So this is the Rakdos deck that's been a mainstay in this format for such a long time, featuring the Grief Not Dead After All combo. But Michael has a couple of interesting stuff. He's got a main deck Magus of the Moon. So that card is very powerful against a lot of matchups in the format, and I think starting with 1 copy in the main makes a lot of sense, even in situations where it's not going to be that great. It is something that you can pitch to a Fable of the Mirror Breaker. And Michael also has a Legion's End as well, which with Rhinos being such a huge part of the metagame, that's a really nice nod.
Yeah, totally agree. Michael is definitely going to wish that Magus was a Blood Moon, as this is a 4 Lightning Bolt deck. But, you can't switch that out mid-tournament here. So we're going to head into the match here head into game number 2 here with Jackie already taking the first game. So, all that hype about that, Magus, it's probably not in the deck anymore, BBD.
Yeah, I would guess probably not.
All right, so we got Michael here firing it off with Bloodstained Mire, and with Jackie firing off a Scolding Tarn, and we're underway here. There's that tap land. No extremely powerful draw that we've seen from these Rakdos Evoke strategies. Not able to have that Grief combination here. And Michael is on the play. So, if you do still have Regavan on the deck, if that was in hand, probably would have played that as well. When you're on the draw, though, BBD, does Regavan get a little bit worse, or are you still leaving it in?
I mean, the card definitely gets a little bit worse, especially against a run in 6 deck.
Yeah.
I think it's the power level of the card is so high that you definitely want the card in matchups where it's good, but the difference between its power when you're on the play versus the draw is pretty stark.
Oh, how about this? A match made in heaven for one player. The old Veil versus Thoughtseize play here. I don't know if Michael had the Thoughtseize for turn 1 and decided to wait for turn 2, or if it was just drawn, but that interaction is always such a blowout.
Yeah, that's an absolute blowout. It's just no, sorry. You're down like a huge piece, a huge amount of value in that interaction.
Yeah,
and this is definitely a matchup where value matters. So.
Yeah, if we were just playtesting BBD, and I just cast Veil, after you Thoughtseize me, you just pack it up, right? And just be done. Go to the next game.
I would keep playing because I like lost causes.
Okay, fair enough. Here we go. And Michael's, oh wow, Magus in hand, proving me wrong immediately. And that being said, Magus of the Moon, you would think up against a deck like Jackie's playing, this 5-color creativity, you'd be like, well, it's a deck that's all red cards. Why would you want Magus? But it's actually still very good against the deck. as you can't, do things like Dwarven Mire. Your Leyline bindings are relatively shut off. You can still cast Fable and you can still lightning bolt creatures, which makes it, a little unfortunate. But other than that, it still is quite good if you don't have those kind of things.
Right. It's asking the question if do you have a lightning bolt, something like that. And if the answer is no, then it's powerful. And I think one of the elements of this Rakdos deck that I really like, that I think is part of what makes it a good deck, is you do have all that hand disruption to set up these kinds of plays.
Yep.
Now,
Totally
granted, Veil of
agree.
Summer
puts a wrench in that one, huh?
Yeah.
Quite the powerful card. All right, and here is Teferi Time Raveler. That's going to stop any of these Grief Not Dead After All interactions, and just ticking it up, just insulates you from the next play. Let's say Shieldred was the follow-up here from Michael. Now Jackie's able to just untap, bounce, and maybe be able to go fetch land plus creativity, mainly just protecting the creativity is probably the best case scenario. But no, is this an evoked grief with the hopes of not dead after all? There's going to be, it's going to be dead after all if Michael was trying to do that and not realizing the static on Teferi shuts this off.
Yeah, this is dead after all. Yeah. Teferi's claimed a lot of victims and will continue to.
Yeah. I mean, that hand is not great, but a Leyline Binding plus a Teferi to bounce something, still pretty strong. And here is a Regavan coming in.
So it looks like it was just an evoked grief, which I think is solid in a situation where your opponent just played a Teferi and they're about to untap and be able to maybe play their fourth land. You're under a lot of threat there.
I don't know, though. With having land number 4, I feel like I would still Grief, but I would just cast Grief because it looks like Grief was pitched as well. I think you're still in a rough spot, don't get me wrong, but still seems kind of brutal here. And now a nice thing that Jackie has available, just in case he top decked creativity, is you don't have to do it now.
Yeah, you do not. You can wait. And I do agree with you. I think with that fourth land, it makes the Grief way more appealing to just play. Yeah. It's also kind of a thing where it's like, the Teferi doesn't really want to bounce a Grief. It's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, not really. Grief was kind of the nice little play there to get yourself in, because this Regavan alone, Regavan is pretty good on the play if you play it on turn 1 because it doesn't get rend. But once you hit turn 4 and a fetch land counters the Regavan, Regavan pretty much becomes a card I discard to Fable every single time.
Yeah, it loses this punch. I don't want to say it has no value, but it has very low value at that point in the game.
Because now what do you close in the game with if you don't have any threat like a Grief? Like a Shieldred or something is the way to go. But if your only threat is Regavan and maybe you have some removal or something, it feels like a losing battle.
Yeah, I think the big card is Fable here. I mean, a lot of the pieces can get dealt with, but ultimately, like, that's going to be how you kind of start to piece your way back into this game, I believe.
Yep, totally agree. There's a cycle on a land at end step. Untaps. We know there's still a Leyline Binding. We know there was still one more Dwarven Mine. Just really in the Indomitable Creativity waiting room here to, kind of have our first Archon actually hit the battlefield. That's the thing about these 5-color creativity decks and what makes them so powerful is, it has that turn 4 play where it looks, unreasonable, where you just hustled out a powerful card like Archon of Cruelty, but it still plays pretty well as just a 5-color control deck.
Yeah, it absolutely does. And I think that's, what makes the deck playable, is that it's not just this all-in deck.
So here's something that you can do. We'll see if it was noticed. I don't think it was. You could have. There was 5 mana. All your lands are about to be mountains. You can just float 5 mana, one of them being white, and then you can still Leyline Binding it.
Oh, the actual hard cast Leyline Binding.
Yeah, because you have one type now and one type only.
I think
You-
Jackie was excited to have something to bounce with Teferi and draw another card.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Now you can do that play now if you want. Looks like Jackie is on top of it here with Sacred Foundry likely being tapped for white in response.
Yeah, didn't want to go for the double Teferi bounce. Once was enough.
Yeah, didn't want to get wrecked by Orcish Bowmasters, I guess.
Yeah.
And I like this play from Jackie because Jackie can just be like, okay, I have added mana. And then Michael can be like, okay, pass priority and be like, okay, now a Leyline Binding. But if Michael wanted to dash a Regavan here, then Leyline Binding can deal with that, untap, and Teferi can get to bouncing.
And looks like another Leyline Binding as well.
Yep, and here is Renin 6 to just get a bunch of 1 mana, 1/1 creatures. That's a sign of strength to play a Triome there.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like
That's
I
kind of
like
wild
that.
to me, right?
You can never have too many lands, right?
I want to Triome in the graveyard and then back to my hand and then in the graveyard and then back to my hand over and over again when I got Ren at this stage of the game.
Yeah, and this is looking pretty uphill for Michael. I mean, you have Bowmaster, which does a little bit, but against specifically these two planeswalkers, it's not exactly where you want to be.
And you know what's even extra brutal for Michael here is Michael has all these awesome tokens, and our person watching this match is just taking them away and handing the generic tokens. I mean, that's just insult to injury there.
It absolutely is, and in this particular game, the injury seems pretty high.
It really is, yeah, just extra beats here. All right, untapping from Jackie here. There's only been one Indomitable Creativity, and it was hit off a Regavan here, so Jackie's trying to find one, and doesn't have any action in hand, really. That is another reason why, all jokes aside, I very much would have kept that that other Triome land to just keep cycling, draw, cycle, draw, and Renin 6 ends up being really nice then.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think at this point, Jackie's in a commanding position, but we've seen it in other matches, that things can go south quickly.
Yeah.
And then you're really looking for a way to end the game and not have it go on indefinitely, basically.
Okay, that is the all-powerful Shielder of the Apocalypse here drawn, and that is definitely a magic card. We know there's the Leyline Binding to clean it up, but you got to get rid of that card first. And if you can, top deck another card like Shieldred, maybe we got a game on our hand, but definitely huge advantage here to Jackie.
Absolutely, but this is where it begins. It's one card at a time. There's no one card that's going to get you out of this board state. It's just going to take, forcing Jackie to answer a number of different threats, and eventually hoping that something sticks through.
You got to think back to that double grief play. Would 2 griefs, them being in play, taking a removal spell, the next turn play another grief, take a removal spell, then die. Like, it's of course tough to imagine how the game would go because everything would be so different, but got to think that would probably be a little bit better for Michael, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I do get the interest in wanting to make the play, but I do think the nature of how this game is going, just the grief itself, it's not just the hand disruption element. It's threat as a creature, and specifically how good it is against Teferi too, because of how painful it is to bounce it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Attack for 3. You got to trade 2 dwarves for it. I mean, that's a high price.
Yeah, I mean, you got what, 4 dwarves in the deck? That's half your deck.
I mean, that's it. I mean, I
that's
guess
all you got.
You can try to find some way to Stone Rain yourself so you can bring him back with Ren, but I don't know if that's possible. All right, this is a big draw because, the Fable itself, fine, not the biggest deal, but those 2 cards in hand are bad, and we want to transform those into new cards. That is a huge draw, actually.
Yeah, I mean, like we were saying, it starts one card at a time. The Shieldred forced out the Leyline Binding, and now this Fable token, or this Fable, provides every element that Michael wants. Like, I don't think Fable by itself is going to win this game, but it is, like, really, now putting Jackie in kind of a tough spot.
Yeah, and a couple relative blanks for Jackie. Blanks in the sense that they're not Indomitable Creativity. I mean,
Yeah.
think that's the card we're really looking for. Fable the Mirror Breaker, one good draw deserves another, as Jackie has a ton of cards that are also bad in hand. So, able to get those away. And then next turn, discard 2 cards. So draw 3 fresh ones. And if you find Indomitable Creativity at this point, it's just game over, because we have the Shaman. We have another dwarf. There's maybe one more dwarf in the deck. If you can creativity for 1, it looks awesome. If you can creativity for 3, it's laughably powerful.
And there's the Teferi in play still. That's going to shut off any possible interaction. Outside of a creativity itself, Fable was, one of the best draws that you could grab there.
Totally agree. Interesting sideboard card here from Michael, having a Fatal Push. It is a counterspell to Indomitable Creativity, but sometimes that's just not how the games work out. Like if you just have a Teferi in play, the card looks a little bit lackluster. But here, a decent target with the Shaman, as well as some other cards being picked up. I believe there was a Ragavan if you want to just attack into this dwarf and just make it so there's less targets for Indomitable Creativity.
Yeah, and what else is Ragavan going to do? I mean, there's also the Ren and 6 still. I think I like dashing this at the Teferi and just saying, okay, I traded with the dwarf.
Yeah, I think the other card was Fable, so it's the choice here to dash or just play Fable and discard the Ragavan. I like this play more.
Yeah.
Spell Pierce could have definitely been there. Tough to play around a lot of stuff here from Michael, but now is that big turn where Fable goes to chapter 2 and see if Jackie can find the namesake card. There it
It
is.
looks like it's right there.
Woo! Okay. Creativity is online. Now we're gonna do a dwarf check. How many do we have left in the deck? I see at least 2 in the top. I guess that is a third if we look on our camera to the left. Here's the 4th. You think 2 Archons is enough to clean this up?
I think it might be. I think 3 is where you feel good.
Yeah. And you know what I would have liked to see here from Jackie is just to wait. Oh yeah, we're casting Fable, I bet. If we can actually do it for 3. But with Teferi in play and you have it ticked up, you can do it at instant speed. And you can also get this reflection. You can really get it all here.
Yeah, I think if you do wait for the reflection, then it is into Michael's main phase, if I'm not mistaken. But
Yes, it would be in the main phase, but that's fine, right? Like you can wait till main phase, you can wait till combat, you can wait till end step. There's no point in doing it right now, right?
yeah, no, you could have either stripped his entire hand during draw step. Here, you let him play a card, but what's going to be played that matters against 3 Archons? Sure.
Yeah, exactly. So this is all just posturing here. Here's Indomitable Creativity for 3, and that is almost assuredly going to put the W here for Jackie, as long as they're still in the deck. That would be the next level play, right? Is just don't have your win cons in the deck and just hope your opponent's like, yeah, you got me.
Yeah, you're flipping through, or you accidentally sideboard in some Tarmogoyf. Flip 3 Tarmogoyfs here, maybe.
All right. Hey, Jackie was not aware of the one of Tarmogoyf tech from Matt Nass before the event. Otherwise, he maybe have changed his mind. All right,
Yeah,
there
there
we
it
go.
is.
That is Jackie taking this down, advancing to 5-1 with creativity. And I gotta say, just one of the most fun decks that you can be playing. It is just a blast. You get to play all of my favorite cards: Teferi, Time Raveler, Fable, the Mirror Breaker. It's just chef's kiss there.
Oh, I completely agree. I love all the cards that everyone hates that are in this deck. Those are the best Magic cards.
Oh yeah, I saw you cast many a Teferi Time Reveler in your day, so I can imagine that is exactly for you as well. So, all right, we are going to be heading out. This is me and BBD's last round. We'll be back with you tomorrow. BBD, a ton of fun commentating with you. We'll be back for some of the rounds that are definitely getting more and more intense tomorrow, but you'll be in the capable hands of Riley Knight and Noah Walker here on the other side of the break. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with the last 3 rounds of coverage.